Hello, sunshine. Welcome to Be Visible with Veronica, the podcast where bold conversations and soul-aligned strategy help you awaken your most powerful self. I'm your host, Veronica Bond. Get ready to stop dimming your light, own your magic, and finally be so visible you can't be ignored. Let's get visible. A heartfelt thank you to our premier sponsor, Green Living Magazine, Arizona's leading conscious lifestyle publication. Each issue is packed with new ideas on how to use nature's resources for sustainable living tips, inspiring stories, and statewide eco events. Subscribe today and get 12 print issues and digital access at greenlivingmag.com/store. Hi, everybody. I'm Veronica Bond. Welcome to my first episode. I'm thrilled to have my very first business coach that helped me figure out what I needed to do to level up my space on my road to my six-figure entrepreneurial journey, Miss Carey Conley, a dear friend and beautiful mentor.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Oh my gosh, Carey. So when you and I met, you were helping women find their vision and really dive into, if you don't have a vision, you don't know the path where you're going, and your business does not have a roadmap.
Right.
Your life doesn't have a roadmap.
Right.
And I found myself crumpled on the floor, crying at my husband's knees, done. Like, I felt like I was just done with the last 9 years. And I'd had success in my business. I had won 7 different trips. There was so much going on that was positive. We had just moved into our dream home, but yet I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I felt like I was kicking doors down to get where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And nobody had ever told me that wasn't the way to go, because all I ever heard was hard work is what you need to be successful.
Right.
So I thought, well, this is hard, so I must be on the right path. And I hired you to help me because you had had huge success in a company called Arbonne.
Right.
And I was having success getting my teeth sharpened on with a company called New Skin. Mm-hmm. And yet I was doing all this marketing and visibility, and I wasn't feeling it was landing. And it was a struggle. And I'm not used to struggling, and I didn't love that. So you and I had a conversation, and I hired you because you were all about vision is victory. And I love this book. But I want to talk about that with you because you were really helping women find their path. Tell me a little bit about why you created Vision is Victory.
Well, a lot of reasons. It goes all the way back to when I was in my late 20s, Veronica. I was doing the 9-to-5 gig, right, like everybody was told to do. And I wasn't doing it well. I was changing jobs every 2 years and just thinking that it wasn't the right job. And I had a mentor come into my life at about that point and told me that I could create my life to look however I wanted it to look. I just needed to get really clear on what I wanted. So with her prompting, I took a day off of work, and with a legal pad of paper, I wrote out all the details of what I wanted my life to look like.
Wow.
So, my family life, where we were living. I knew at that point that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what that was. But I knew I wanted to make a 6-figure residual income, passive income. I wanted to earn trips, take our family on trips. I knew that I wanted to be in a company where there was a lot of leadership and a lot of opportunity for personal growth. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward a little bit, a couple of years later, I'd had my son, and I was 5 months pregnant with my daughter when I got introduced to Arbonne. Mm. And so I jumped all in because it checked all those boxes, right?
Right.
All the boxes. So I crafted the vision first, and the how showed up. And I think that's a big thing for people is they think that they can't write a vision or they can't go after something until they have a blueprint. So that's why many, many years later, I started teaching other people how to write their vision on paper, especially all my leaders that I brought into the company. Mm. And then 12 years later, when I just decided to write the book and start teaching it publicly, was when I started coaching a lot of female service-based entrepreneurs. Not all female, but mostly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we love our men. So I'm grateful to have a foundation and support with my beautiful husband and my 2 boys and my son in love. And so those are important, but we learn differently as women. And this is a show about entrepreneurship, women leaders in entrepreneur, whether you're a strong, bold startup, or you've hit that 6, 7, 8 figure and you're running a company of hundreds or 50, 60, and you're now managing your dream and your vision along with helping others really believe in your mission too.
Right.
And bring that community spirit to the party. And one thing that I watched you do since I've met you in 2019 was how you create a community and you've put the right people in the right places to now be in this new success space. And the reason why I invited you to be the very first guest on my podcast, which by the way,
It's very exciting.
oh my gosh, thank you. We happened to be meeting for happy hour that day, and you and I have a hard time getting on each other's calendar now. And as divine intervention would have it, I signed the contract to come and work with Podworks to be in studio to launch this podcast that had been on my heart for a while. And really came to be because of some conversations I had with my sweet brother who went through his transition in October. And I think sometimes we have to be cracked open to see what we came to be and do in our purpose.
Right.
And I know you understand that about being cracked open. One of the hardest things I ever did on my road to entrepreneurship was write a check to work with you. That was, I'm just going to tell everybody, it was a $5,000 check. And at the time, I think I had $7,000 in my business bank account. And I thought, what the heck am I doing? But I believed in me and I believed in you. And I loved that you had this journey that I was aspiring to do in my company that I'd gotten burnt out in working. But I also knew that I was meant to do more. I just didn't know what that looked like. And you had 2 things to say to me. One of them was you need to know your gates and your barriers, and you need to know who you're letting be in that front row seat of your business and your life. Who is in the front row, and then who needs to get moved back. And that's okay. And so I wrote you the check, and 2 days later, I ruptured my Achilles on the tennis court. And I called you. And I thought God was telling me, what the heck did you just do? You have no business writing a check to invest in yourself with a business coach. Like, what is that all about, Veronica? You went to school. You have advanced education. You've been in business since 1988. It was now 2019. Why do you need a coach? And I'm looking around at all of these places where I could find mentorship. And honestly, there wasn't a lot of women to turn to at the time that had had success and had checked off the boxes, just like I believed I was doing. But I'd lost the passion, the fire, the vision, the love. I was feeling defeated. I was feeling deflated. And now I rupture my Achilles. And I call you. And do you remember what you said to me on that call?
Yes, I do.
Because
you've quoted me many times. You said that I don't think this is the right time. Now I'm injured and I'm going to be laying it up for a while. And I said, well, 2 things. I said, 1, what a better time to be working with a coach, getting some things figured out because you're going to be laid up for a while. And the second thing I told you, I believe, was something along the lines of, I would not be a very good coach if I let you off the hook that easy.
That's exactly what you said to me. And that landed like at my core. And you gave me a couple weeks to think about it.
Yeah.
And everybody knows I move fast. Sandra Yancey, one of my most recent business coaches, the founder of eWomen Network, said to me, Veronica, I don't know anybody that moves faster when she sees a goal or has a vision, because you take action. And I think that is something that there's a lot of, 5 million entrepreneurs started in 2023, Carey, and 49% of those were women.
Yeah.
And I believe that we have a mission, and that's what this podcast is all about, to help women entrepreneurs at any age either step into it and believe in themselves and maybe gain some actionable items through this podcast to hear either be motivated to keep going, to take that next best step forward, to bring a little sunshine to the planet and their life and their world and what that feels like. But also to give them hope when things are hard.
Yeah.
And you've had hard things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So besides The Vision is Victory, which this is a beautiful story and it's a great book and it's a short read on Amazon, right? People can get it on Amazon still.
It's an actual workbook. It actually walks people through how to write their vision on paper like they've never done before.
I love that. You know what? The ice cream cone was something I'd never seen before or worked on, and I've done a lot of personal development up to that point, which I love what you said. Your business was like a personal development journey, like check. You needed to have that in place.
Right.
And I believe, for me, readers are leaders, and earners are learners.
Right.
This is why I'm showcasing some of my favorite books right now that I've either recently gone through or that I love. The Big Leap was big for me.
Love that book.
Do you have a book recently that you've read that you think is power that an entrepreneur should be reading right now?
I think The Big Leap is a really good book to talk about because it is about, it's about really stepping into your zone of genius, which is what you're doing, right? A lot of people get to where they're really comfortable and they get to where they're succeeding at a certain level, but there's something else that they're called to at a higher level, and a lot of people don't take that big leap into that true calling, right?
Well, you've networked for many years, and you've been around a lot of communities all throughout the United States because you're also a paid speaker.
Right.
People bring you on their stages for you to inspire and share and really, when needed, kick somebody in the little tail to move them forward, which you did with me.
Right.
And you know what I realized is the place that I was is not the place God wanted me to be. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, and that's why it was so hard.
Yeah.
And business and life should also come with ease and flow. And even though it's hard, there are moments we need to embrace and recognize what's the path of least resistance, and can we go that extra mile, that mile that nobody else is on the entrepreneurial journey. It might feel like there's so many people getting into entrepreneurship, but they don't last, they don't stay, or they talk about it and they don't take action. And that's what your vision quest that you've started and you created.
That's a good word.
Works. And I also love your focus of young people. So let's talk about why that is important to you and that age group that you are now cultivating this beautiful community and launching this new conversation that is so needed right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So I have been wanting to create a community for young adults. And when I say young adults, people get kind of confused with the age group. I'm talking early 20s to maybe mid-30s. Veronica, you know, they're adulting now. They're out in the world, whether they've gone to college or they've moved out of their home or whatever. And for the most part, a lot of them are really struggling, figuring things out. They're right now statistically the loneliest generation we have because they feel very isolated. I think social media has a lot to do with that. They're getting out and they're just looking around and like I did, going, this is it? Like, they're getting into jobs that they don't necessarily love and they don't know what to do about that and how to change it. Struggling with real relationships and finding their community. So there's a lot going on, and it creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and unfortunately there's a very high suicide rate in this age group as well. And so a lot of people know this about my story, but I lost my 25-year-old son to suicide 7.5 years ago now. So it's a big calling for me. It's a big passion I have. And I don't think very many people are paying much attention to them. So I am launching what's called Visions Victory Academy, Viva, and going to have a great big event later this year to really unveil that.
And we'll get to how everybody can follow you and learn more when we're at the end here, so stay tuned for more information there.
Great.
But that also leads me into how you created this Vision is Victory, because you still coach women and men in their vision.
Right.
And you're also creating this community.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of irons in the fire. How did
And
you...
more.
And more. How did you... I mean, you have a networking group. You're speaking and traveling around the world. I know you have a good BFF that keeps you grounded, and she's your cheerleader, and you're probably you're conscious in how you're checking in with yourself too, and you have a beautiful daughter and 2 lovely grandsons, and you wrote a book with her as well. So tell me what that book, this one was called Keep Looking Up. Is this also on Amazon, Carey?
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's also Audible.
Oh, it is? Okay,
We recorded it, yeah.
You did? The two of you?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Years ago.
So this was 2019?
We wrote the book. Yes, it launched in
Because
2019.
I remember you had the big event here, the launch party, right before COVID hit.
Right.
So talk to me about what this story was about.
Well, prior to losing my son, we also lost my husband to suicide 3 years before him. So a year after, we lost my husband in 2014 and my son in 2017. So we decided in 2019 to write a book because we were so public about our story. Me being a speaker and my daughter stepping into becoming a speaker with me. We had so many people asking us so many questions. How are you getting through this? How can I help somebody get through their own adversity they're moving through? So it talks a little bit about our story, but it's really 11 chapters of what we learned in hopes that it will help other people move through their own journey. So it's broken into, I share my perspective, Laurel shares her perspective, and at the end of every chapter there's some questions that you can ask yourself, or you can do it with your family or in a book club or whatever. So it was really just spurred on because a lot of people were asking us so many questions.
Well, I love that you were so public with that story, and I also really appreciate your journey through it, because we often hear this victim mentality staying in your story, and as the audience can tell, we didn't start there. It's part of what we're doing in this podcast and how we're growing into being and what that purpose feels like.
Right.
But that wasn't why we started this conversation. It's part of what you're doing in your big why and your vision. So you have everybody start with in 3 years and 5 years, and I'm not going to give it all away, but you had me write down on a legal pad of paper while I'm laying with my foot up, how old will you be in 3 years? How old will your kids be? What about the significant people around you? Your husband? How long will you be married? All of these things. And then what ages are you?
Right.
Because you really wanted me to be able to see this growth, like where are some milestones and non-negotiables and things that were coming up. And my kids weren't married yet, and this is 2019, so my youngest was 19. He was still playing college ball. My son was 25. He was just leaving, trying to play semi-pro. Lexi was living in LA. So there was so much going on, and I hadn't really thought about that because I was very goal-oriented as a young child, and I felt like I was crossing off, got married, got my degree, had the job, did the thing, was successful with my husband of 17 years. We worked in the same company, and then I had success with my network marketing company. And it was only supposed to be a pause until I found the next thing. And I thought I was looking for the J-O-B, but what I realized along the journey for myself is I never wanted to live in fear of a pink slip. And I knew I could trust my hard work. But what I really started to believe is the power of having a coach as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And there's probably a lot of coaches who are listening to this podcast who are entrepreneurs, and they coach women in all kinds of capacities. But I think if you also don't have a coach and you're a coach, then you should probably check that box.
Right.
Like there should be somebody you're being mentored by, or is 10, 20X. Let's talk about 10X is better than 2X, right? Another great book.
Yeah.
There should always be somebody that you're turning to who sees your blind spots.
Right.
Because somebody said to me the other day, you can't see the label when you're in the jar.
That's great.
How great is that?
So good.
Such a good quote from her. I hope to have her on the podcast down the road too. But back to your story, you helped me create the Side Hustle Expert. And you were so excited when I had finally, after all this work we've created together, you helped me see a vision of myself I didn't see. Again, I was in the jar. I couldn't see the label. And that took off like crazy, like wildfire. And I love that about how you really crafted that skill. So speaking to other entrepreneurs that are out there right now, and women entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, that 18 to 35-year-old who might be listening today, what's a piece of advice or an action step you could give them that you wish somebody would have told you at 22, 25?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify that it's not just females.
Yes, I know.
I do actually talk to more young men than I do young women.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why that is. They just, I think they trust me, kind of like a mom figure maybe.
Oh, I love that.
So, and they're not entrepreneurs, all of them either.
No.
They're just trying to figure out their life and who they are and where they're supposed to be. So so I have my own podcast, and it's called Mental Health Breakthroughs for Young Adults and Their Families. And I started bringing on young adults for me to have them share their life, how they were feeling about it. They're very transparent. They really would unveil a lot to me. And not only would they tell me how they're feeling, what they're really struggling with, and what they worry about, they allowed me to kind of hot seat coach them a little bit on the podcast.
Oh, wow.
So I gave them a little bit of advice. And so one of them was, when I was in my studio, we had a young producer in there who was 22. His name is Ethan. And I asked Ethan one day in between shows what he was really struggling with. And so he told me a lot of things. And I said, would you come on the podcast and let me coach you? And he said, sure. And one of the things that Ethan was struggling with was what his next step was career-wise, whether he should go back to school. He stopped going to school when COVID happened and hadn't gone back yet. And he wondered if he should go back to school. He really wanted to get into bigger video production. And so the one piece of advice I gave him was just to find somebody in that industry that he could pick their brain, ask them questions, how they got started, what was it really like, so that he could make a decision based on the research he was doing and what they were telling him to do. So what I know now is I think he went off to New York to do that. I'm not sure, but just little pieces of advice, just taking baby steps, Veronica, is what they need. Just somebody to tell them, just go do one thing today in that direction.
And they are seeking it, and they're very bold. My kids have no problem telling mom, nope.
Yeah.
And here's why I think that. And I had to learn how to really accept that. One thing I learned was kids have valuable information, and if you tap into what they know and who they know and their journey, they're going to give you some really powerful lessons and advice. And as a mom, I was born in 1966, so I grew up with parents who knew the path for me.
Right.
And only knew what they knew. Amazing. Raised 3 kids. We're all grateful for their support and love. But I listened. Like, there was not a lot of back and forth communication if I thought I wanted to do things differently. And I wanted to raise my kids to have a voice.
Right.
And I'll never forget the day I told my daughter, okay, this is not up for debate.
Yeah.
But they're strong, vocal children, and that generation really is. And I love that you shared they're lost and they feel alone. Mm-hmm. So how are you reaching that audience right now, Carey?
Well, we're just getting started, Veronica. A lot of it has been very organic. I just happen to know a lot of young adults just because of my son's friends I'm still very close to, my daughter and her community, my podcast. A couple of them have found me that way. So what we're starting with now is creating, I want to bring them together in calls a couple times a month to really start asking them, okay, this is really your community. It's not me. So what do you want? What do you need? What can we help you with? And we'll start building it. I have a platform already built for it where they can get master classes on different topics. And maybe start doing retreats down the road. We'll see. It really depends on what they want.
Well, one of the things that an entrepreneur needs to be aware of is taking action steps and listening to that calling. And you do that.
Right.
You invest in yourself. You find the community that's going to help you get to where you need to go. But more importantly, you know what your skill sets are. And I love that you hire others and you put them around you that are better. There's so many times you've said to me, they're better at that in that lane than I am, and I'm not going to try to learn it.
Right. Yeah, I am big on delegating. People tell me all the time, you really need to learn this, Carey. And I'm like, no, I really don't. Because for me to take the time, like I know AI is such a big thing, right? And people tell me all the time, you really need to be learning. And I'm like, I have people that know that, right? It's not my skill set. Because that takes away from me doing what I do best. because it's only so much time in the day. So I think as an entrepreneur, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, obviously, because I coach a lot of them at the beginning stages, trying to wear all the hats and getting really frustrated and not getting anywhere because they're not doing the one thing that makes them money. So my first coach told me, what is the one thing that you do that when you do it, you build an audience and you get clients? And I told her it's when I speak. She said, do that 80% of your time. And so I took a lot off my plate and just started speaking more.
Wow. And when you were speaking, you had a place to nurture an audience where they could come and sign up for the thing or get the freebie or come into your community, because you could go speak on a number of stages, and if there's no one to find you and there's no way for them, but that's where all those hats come in, because then suddenly it's like, well, do I need a website? Do I need a podcast? How do I speak? Do I need the juicy freebie? What is the email flow? What about my logo? And yet there's some very successful entrepreneurs that say, I never had a website. I didn't need one.
I didn't have one for the first year of my business.
So there you go.
And that is the other thing, that when I coach entrepreneurs, a lot of them come to me and they've done all the right things, but in the wrong timeline. And so they're frustrated. So for example, a lot of them think, okay, I can't get out there and do this thing until I've got a website built. Okay, at some point, yes, I have a website. We tweak it every once in a while, but it's there, right? But I didn't have it for the first year because I needed to prove to myself that I could make money and bring clients in, and they would want what I have.
Well, you needed the proof of concept.
Right. I didn't even write this book until 2 years after I started.
See?
So, and that's another thing a lot of speakers and coaches do is, well, I got to have a book. I've got to have a book. It'll be nice to have a book. It's a calling card, but it's not what's going to ring the cash register, so to speak, right? So all good things, but there's a timeline to be doing things in.
And I love that you create that, and you did that for me, and this is why we're sitting here today.
Right.
And I never set out to be a podcast host or to have this type of visibility, but what I did set out to do was be the wind underneath the wings of other entrepreneurs.
Right.
And my name is The Road to the Lighthouse. My married name means road, and my maiden name means lighthouse. And in lots of conversation, it's just been be the light, and being able to facilitate that and create businesses and collaborations. This becomes a platform for other women entrepreneurs to share their story, to tell people what they're doing. And so with that, Carey, how do people find you? Where would you like them to go to connect with you? So that you can nurture them further? What would that look like?
Well, there's a couple things. Obviously, I have a website. It's just careyconley.com. Everything's there. The podcast, the books, this event that I just mentioned earlier that we're going to be loading onto there pretty soon. But I also have a downloadable version of this book, Veronica, that I give away for free that I'll give you a link to. So that people can download that and write their vision out.
Awesome. And we will put that in the show notes for everybody to grab too. And just having a plan, like for me, I wanted to call this Hello Sunshine. It's so much who I am and how I show up in the world. And I love my little neon sign back there. But it is already being used, and I knew that it probably was, but it's being used in a way that we can't call this podcast that. So we're going to make a shift. But that did not stop me from having these recordings today and moving this forwards. So all of my guests who come on the podcast get a box full of sunshine.
Oh, nice.
And this is for you.
So fun. Thank you.
And there's lots of goodies in there just to remind you to keep being that bright light for others to find, and how you show up, and know how much I love you and adore you. And I'm so appreciative of you being my very first guest. You were my very first coach, and you gave me the belief that I could do something bigger than the vision I had for myself.
Well, I'm happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. If you like what you're seeing and hearing on this podcast, the conversation every week with entrepreneurs, the fourth week will be a 501(c) that we'll always be highlighting. But next week, we will bring in Dr. Brenda Combs, the ambassador of inspiration, and you'll learn about finding my shoes. We'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in to Be Visible with Veronica. If today's episode sparked something in you, share it. tag me, and pass it on. Your presence has power, and the world is better when you let it be seen. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and keep showing up as the unstoppable force you were born to be. I'll see you next time.